Hey everybody, and welcome into arguably our most exotic location ever for this show. We are excited to have you here from Stockholm, Sweden, alongside Penguins head coach Dan Muse. I am Josh Getzoff. Coach, we've done this in Pittsburgh, we've done this in a couple different road cities, but never on a different continent, and that's where we're at right now. So a little unique, and I'm sure this next week will be pretty fun for your team.
Yeah, no, definitely really excited to be over here. You get the travel day and getting in, and you get acclimated. I think it's nice too how things are spread out in the sense that you do have a little bit of time to kind of adjust what you need there when you're going overseas like this. But it's thrilled for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and there's also an interesting wrinkle in all this with us being here in Stockholm and you specifically. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I talked to Kyle Dubas, and he mentioned that the first time he interviewed you was when he was here with Team Canada for the World Championships. You, of course, were back, I assume, stateside. But when you think about that and the full circle moment that now you're back in Stockholm a handful of months later, the head coach of the team for the job you interviewed for, any emotions or thoughts that come to mind when you just think about how crazy that whole process was and maybe where you were at when it started to where you're at now?
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't think of it that way. Obviously, I knew, when that process started, just Kyle was over here with Worlds, and I knew he was overseas. But that one specifically hadn't crossed my mind. I guess that does make it a little bit unique. Yeah. It's obviously it's been a busy time since then and getting to now, and I think it's just been taking everything a day at a time, and obviously go through the summer and just the preparation for the season and then training camp, and then you get right into it. And so probably haven't been too many of those moments where you really have time to sit back and think about things like that, but I'll sure be able to reflect a little bit on the time while we're over here.
Yeah, it's a special angle to this one. The Global Series in general has really gotten a lot of traction over the last handful of years, and Sidney Crosby was discussing when the team got into town on Tuesday about how he remembers coming out here in 2008, and it was after, I think, Los Angeles and Anaheim played a game in London when things were really starting to get bigger and growing the game. You've coached internationally. You've seen the growth of this game on the international stage with Team USA. How can you kind of observe this from the 200-foot lens of looking around and seeing just how much it's grown and the excitement for National Hockey League action to come to Stockholm?
I mean, I think it's great for the league. It's great for hockey in general. There's so many passionate countries, and this is definitely one of them. And just from my experiences of working with players from Sweden, and from all over the world, just working with different players from different spots, and then the different cultures that they come from and the different backgrounds, and then having the opportunity as well just to be able to coach internationally. And I think this is probably my fourth time over to Sweden, and I go back to even my first opportunity to come over. I think I just started coaching. I was actually in Stockholm in the summer. It was either 06 or 07, and so which is crazy to think how long it's actually been. But like even then, just getting those experiences of actually being able to be here, and I think every country is a little bit different and a little bit unique. But they're a place like this in Sweden, like this is a very proud country. They're very proud of their hockey. They're very proud of the players that have moved on there to the National Hockey League. And so now to be able to bring these NHL games here, with also you got the Swedish players that will be playing in it, like Erik Karlsson, and then you also have players like Sidney Crosby and Gino and Tanger, and like just guys that I'm sure that the fans here are really excited to see and to be able to see firsthand and in person. So there's all these different reasons why it's special and why it's unique and why it's great for the game. But I'm thrilled that the league's been doing it. They've been doing it for a while, and it just continues to spread and give a great experience to people all over the world.
Yeah, it's a lot of excitement. It should be two great games at the end of this week with the Penguins taking on the Nashville Predators here in the Global Series. Speaking of Nashville, that was a stop in your coaching career, and we will discuss that when we come back after this.
No one gets you ready for puck drop like Penguins Face Off Live. Pre-game insights, analysis, and a word straight from the coach. Penguins Face Off Live before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Welcome back. Well, Coach, we mentioned one of the stops in your career before coming to Pittsburgh was in Nashville with the Predators. In fact, I believe it was the year you joined just after the Penguins had beaten them to win the Stanley Cup. But your first year was a President's Trophy winning year for Nashville there. I'm just curious, when you look back on that experience from your development, from your growth as a coach, what was it like being there in Nashville and kind of gaining the years that you did in an NHL setting?
Yeah, it was a great experience. That was my first opportunity to work in the National Hockey League, so obviously it was a special one. The opportunity came up, shortly after the Penguins won the Stanley Cup and beating Nashville, and so and I ended up getting a phone call, got an opportunity to interview, and spent 3 years there, and they were great years. They were special years there, like from a professional standpoint, from a family standpoint. So always have good memories there, and I think I learned a lot there in those 3 seasons there, working under Peter Laviolette, and learning from him. There's obviously something too, when those games are being played. It's always looking back. I think again, coaching against teams where you've coached guys that are on the ice or teams that you used to work for. It should be some good games here, a good experience.
It's kind of unique too because you got the Rangers out of the way too out of the first 3 games. Now you get these guys, the other team you were affiliated with in the NHL, and you play them in this international stage, I guess. That makes it for you, I assume, a little more fun. But were these games just in general that you had circled because of your connection to Nashville? Now taking over as a head coach.
I think it's when it gets to the actual games, it's just the focus is always on us, and so. I don't know how much actually goes into it, like especially when you're not going in. Like I think when it becomes a little bit different is like that first time going into a building that you used to coach in and now you're on the visitor side. It's not so much that you're circling it or doing anything different for it. It's just different. It's the first time you're in a different room getting ready, but it's in the same building. You're on the other bench. You're obviously coaching against them, but and I think from just one of my time as an assistant in New York, having already gone back to Nashville, I don't think it's and like I said, for the player standpoint, there's only a few guys that are left. There's some staff members for sure that I've got a good relationship with, and it's always nice to see those people again, people you haven't seen in a little while. But in the end, it's about us. We're on a business trip too. It's about getting points.
One of the guys that you did know over there that's on this business trip with you is Nick Bonino, and he was one of the players when you were a coach. Now, of course, in his first year of coaching. I know I've asked you about him before, but when you thought about just the fact of watching him as a player, have there been many guys like him that you've seen and have been like, that guy one day could coach? Because I don't know how much that would even cross your mind as a coach of a player. You're more, I would assume, focused on the results and trying to get the most out of the players, but clearly something lit a light bulb for you with him. Yeah, no,
it definitely did. And I guess I think I've mentioned this before, but there was a point there just while he was still playing where I'd said to him, if I ever do get an opportunity as a head coach, I'm going to give you a call. And there are some guys I think you can kind of see that. A lot of it comes through the conversations about the game that you have with somebody and the way they think about it. And, with Bones, I think it's that for sure. I think especially with, when we were together in Nashville, he was, one of the first guys out the door on the penalty kill. And that was something that I was, running. And so there's a lot of conversations about that part of the game, a lot of conversations about what he sees on the ice, a lot of conversations just about his thoughts, because I think it's always good to hear what the players think too. They're the ones that are on the ice, that have to go out there and execute the game plan. And so a lot of, I think, my thought process of me feeling like he would be a great coach someday came through a lot of those conversations. And then you combine that with the type of person he is. He was a great teammate. So it's just you see that combination, and I was hoping that it was something that he would be considering, and I was thrilled when he decided to join us, and he's done a great job. He's completely, he's taken those experiences that he had as a player and he's applied them to coaching, and the things that maybe he hadn't had as much experience on, he's picked it up really quick.
Watching the practice here in Stockholm when you guys got on the ice, it's the same feel to a lot of your practices, just the high intensity. There's a lot of quick movement. Even when you explain the drills to the players, it seems there's 2 or 3 drills you're giving them, and then it's bang, let's go. Where did you kind of develop that mindset of starting practice that way? And I know it's an old adage of practice like you play, but it really does seem like the Penguins do play like they practice.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm glad that's how you think, because we take a lot of pride in how we practice. And I think that first practice when we got over here was probably the most I've ever gone to a board, in a while. But that's also because we just got off a plane and I really didn't want to have a long meeting. And even these practices, one of the benefits that I had was, the amount of time that I spent with USA Hockey for 3 seasons, and then also doing other stuff with them in the past, and being a part of staffs in the past where, you are traveling, overseas, and then you're quickly going on the ice, and so was able to go back a little bit to some things that I felt had worked well in the past, just because you're not able to think too much on these days, and you just want to get a lot of tempo, you want to get up and down, but overall with practice, it's something I think over time I've learned a lot from different people that I worked under, and then I took those things that I learned and I tried to apply them as a head coach, and I think that probably helped my kind of the way I really view practice evolve in those years. And then just having the experience too, even in New York, being able to take some of those things and as an assistant coach working to apply them, and then you continue to evolve as I get here, and every group's a little bit different, but I think the core things that we want it to be game-like as possible, and we want to put a high value on competition within practice.
The road to puck drop begins on Penguins Tonight. A first look at the latest game news, stories from around the league, and so much more. Penguins Tonight, 1 hour before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Morgan & Morgan.
Welcome back. Well, Coach, we've talked a lot about what's ahead for the Penguins. Let's talk a little bit about what just happened. A couple of games going into the break, a back-to-back in New Jersey on Saturday, a shootout loss to the Devils, and then a 3-2 loss at home to the LA Kings. 2 different kinds of games, but I know 2 games that left you guys feeling a little empty as far as the overall points gained and the results were concerned. I'm just curious, when you kind of look back, there were some positives, a lot of positives in the way you played those games. You controlled play for a lot of them. How do you balance that when you have the positives, but the team's building this kind of expectation, I think, that the results are going to be there too? Yeah.
No, I think it's, you want to take the good parts, the things that we feel like, were there for us in those games that worked well, and you want to make sure that those carry over. But you also have to recognize too that while there was a lot to we didn't get the results that we wanted. We didn't get the points that we set out to get, and so you then look at, well, what can be done differently. And so, for us, that's an ongoing process. I think it's something that even in the games that we have won, we'll look back on those and we'll say the same thing. What did we like? What do we want to take with us moving forward? What can be better? And so. I think we did in terms of with the puck. I think we had it, especially in that New Jersey game there. I think you look at the territorial advantage of being more in the offensive zone than we were in the defensive zone. I think that was there against a good team. I think we also did a good job there in terms of the way we worked the puck out of our zone through the neutral zone and in. Which against a team like New Jersey that transitions extremely well, if you're doing that well and you're controlling the neutral zone, you're taking away one of their strengths, which is their transition game. And so that was something that I think we've gotten better with that as the years gone on. Especially against teams that are like that, teams that they're kind of, that's where they look to generate a lot of their offense, and so that was a positive. But you look back on that game too, and we still need to, I think, score more at 5-on-5. And I think you look at both of those games, and that's an area there that I think we can continue to improve. They were both a little bit different games. I think some of the chances that we gave up in that LA game, it was they were able to enter our zone with time and space more than we'd like. So those are areas that, you know, we're going to continue to work on and continue to look at and continue to, you know, make sure that we improve moving forward. And but there is definitely parts of both of those games, a lot of parts that we want to make sure we're not getting away from, and that we are taking that as we go into these upcoming games.
One big part of that LA game, and obviously we'll get to the injuries as a result of why this man was in goal in a second, but was Sergei Murashov's NHL debut. And I believe 27 saves on 30 shots from the Kings or maybe it was the other way around, 24 saves on 27 shots. I have a bunch of numbers in my head, but sometimes they get jumbled. In any event, he let in 3 goals. The team falls to LA. What'd you make of his NHL debut and just kind of how he handled that moment? I mean, there's a buzz in the city for him to be able to make his first start.
No, I think he handled it really well. I mean, he's a younger guy who, you know, comes in, and I thought he handled himself really well. Like, I think he gave us a chance to win. And so, you know, I think you look back on that game too, like the first goal is it's a strange goal. It goes off one of our sticks, and it's a tough play. Those are going to happen over the course of the year. It's everybody trying to do the right thing, and it's just sometimes the pucks bounce the wrong way. And so, you know, but then I thought he really stuck with it. He had some huge saves there. One in particular was the one that was we were on the power play. They had a shorthanded chance, and, you know, just made an incredible save. He's really athletic. He's really competitive. You see that not just in the games, but you also see that in practice. And I think he's somebody that's extremely diligent too, just in terms of his preparation and his work, and he's shown that. And so, I think he's a guy that there's a lot of upside there, and he's still young, and it's still, I think, with all young players, and you see a number of them right now that are up with us. You know, there's always going to be things that they need to learn too, you know, just through experience. You know, there's things you think about, like just some of the young players that we have here right now, Murashov being one of them, and then you see the guys that have been doing this for, you know, 20 years. Right. And, you know, you think of all those different experiences, the things that you might not even think of that might come up, those situations, and that's what I think all this experience is. It's great experience for all these young guys.
Yeah, Sergei Murashov, 1 game under his belt. You mentioned the young guys being up. A lot of that's due to some injuries in your lineup, and we've run the list on our broadcast, and it seems it's almost too big to fit on a single screen with how many important bodies you have out. But the one thing that's jumped out to me is the staff, yourself, you know, your guys on the bench with you, and I'm sure up above as well, the ability to find combinations within the adversity, I guess, whether it's a guy that's been brought up from Wilkes-Barre coming in and slotting in somewhere, or within the guys that you still had to move people around and find something. I mean, the latest has been Tommy Novak with Gino and Anthony Mantha.
Well, I think sometimes you're looking at it from a lot of different, I guess, vantage points. Sometimes you go based off of, you know, maybe there's some past experience or past history. You know, with Novak and Gino, it was a very small sample size from last year, but obviously there was a little bit of time together there, and that, you know, I think it was a game and change there that Tommy played prior to him getting hurt. But then, you know, you go into that, there's also, while I wasn't here, I'm sure practice time, everything else, and so, and then you also go based off of a little bit, you know, just like player type. I think sometimes you're looking at like guys that can complement each other, that can work off of each other, that maybe think the game in a similar way. And then you're also looking at it from a usage standpoint. You know, guys that are, you know, if somebody's going to be playing, you know, on Lizzo's line, like that's a job where you are going to be, you know, maybe starting in the D zone a lot more than you're starting in the O zone. And right. So to be able, then I think, you know, with that line this year that what they've given us, it's been huge. The energy that they've created, the way they've gone on to defend, the way they can change momentum within a game just by you know, on any given shift, just based on their playing style. So you obviously want to find a fit for that too. What's going to like allow these guys to, you know, for a line like that to continue to play that type of way and that style. And so you're looking at all these things and you try things, and sometimes they work well right away. Sometimes they need a little bit of time, and sometimes you gotta circle back and you gotta say, okay, well maybe, you know, this player would be better suited or be a better fit for him with this type of a player. And so I think anytime you have injuries, you're looking at those things. This was a situation too where there's multiple, guys coming out of the lineup in a very short window, which it's going to happen during the course of the hockey season. You got to be ready for that, and that's where it becomes the next player up. It's a new opportunity for somebody to come in and to make some noise for themselves.
Inside Penguins Hockey is back.
Let's go eat sushi.
For an all-new season.
And now he's your best friend.
Yeah. Getting a line in the water is always a joy for me.
Inside Penguins Hockey. New episodes every month on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by UPMC Health Plan.
Welcome back. Well, Coach, it has been fast and furious to start this year. After the LA game this past Sunday, you guys were tied for the most games in the league with 17. But that's going to let up a bit here because the schedule, as a result of us being in Sweden, and then on the other side, the recovery of this trip, just 2 games over a 12-day span. Those, of course, both here in Stockholm against the Predators. How do you mentioned the practice time not always being there. Now you have so much of it, so much downtime between games. How do you guys manage that shift in the schedule? And then also from the injured player perspective, is there a little bit of silver lining there that some of these guys that were, a couple weeks ago looking at 3+ weeks away, suddenly you subtract almost 2 weeks out of that total with just this span of days right here?
Yeah. I mean, one thing you can't control is the actual schedule itself. So we've, as we go through the year, you're taking what's in front of you. And, I do think it gives an opportunity because there's been a lot of games, and it's, and obviously with that, it's nice sometimes you can just kind of catch your breath. And I think that's, you get that there, leading up to, the games there in Sweden, but then you also on the back end of that too, a little bit of a gap prior to our next games, and so it'll allow for some practice time, more than we've had, and some good practice time, so that we can continue to work on some parts of our game that we want to just continue to take steps in. It does give guys. It's also, I think, just even a mental break as well. Those are important, because you're going. When you are able to catch your breath and just take a second. Sometimes I think that can go a long way. And so this is the schedule that we got, and we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to benefit from the schedule as much as we possibly can here.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how the Penguins do in these pair of games against the Nashville Predators here in Sweden. Should be a lot of fun, Coach. Enjoy the trip. I'm sure you'll have a little bit of time to sightsee, but I know all the focus will be on the preparation for the Predators. So good luck, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, that's Penguins head coach Dan Muse. I'm Josh Getzoff. A reminder, we'll have both those games for you on both SportsNet Pittsburgh and the Penguins Radio Network. 2 p.m. puck drop on Friday for the Pens and Preds, and then 9 a.m. on Sunday morning locally in Pittsburgh for the final game of this global series. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.